Yunli is about to get her first ever rerun in Honkai Star Rail, and she does have a pretty unique playstyle compared to other DPS characters. Since we're expecting some future DPS characters like Maide and possibly Casterus to be going pretty crazy, it might seem not as worth it to pull for a character like Yunli, who was a previously released DPS character on a rerun. So today, we're first going to go over the main points of Yunli's kit as a quick refresher. Then we're going to talk about how good she is in the current state of Honkai Star Rail, and whether or not you should pull for her on her rerun banner. So Yunli is a physical destruction character, and she is a counterattack character, very similar to Clara, but she does have some differences and is just overall better than Clara is, pretty much like a premium version of her. And Yunli has two main parts of her kit that focus on her counters and make her really good. So the first one of those is her talent. Her talent outlines her basic counter, and all of the counterattacks she does are going to be blast attacks. And whenever Yunli does a counter, she does get 15 extra energy back. And this means, including the energy you get just from base from doing a counter, she is going to get 25 energy back per counter attack, which is a really good amount, especially when we get to the second part that I want to talk about here. And in addition, for her talent as well, anytime she does a counter attack, she gets a 30% attack buff for one turn from her Ascension 6 trace. So she is getting an extra buff for doing her counterattacks, and that should be up pretty much all the time for her, which is nice. Then the second part of her kit that is really important for her is going to be her ultimate. So her ultimate is basically like a massive enhancement for her counters. It costs 120 energy, but Yunli can actually hold up to 240 energy, aka double what her ultimate costs, meaning that you can save her ultimate for the best times and not have to worry as much about overcapping her energy, because being able to use her ultimate at the right time is going to be pretty important here. Now, whenever you do activate her ultimate, it's going to enter the parry state and is going to taunt all enemies, and this will last until the next either ally turn or the next enemy turn. So you do want to position these ultimates right before enemies attack so that you can take advantage of the taunt and also the parry state. She also does have an A4 trace that will give her a crowd control resist and a 20% damage reduction as well, giving her a bit more survivability when you are using her ultimate here. So during the parry state, if the enemy hits you while you're in the state and you activate your counter, it's going to enhance it to Intuit Cull. And Intuit Cull is going to have a much stronger damage multiplier than the regular counter, and not only will it deal the standard blast damage, but it's also going to deal 6 additional damage instances to a single random enemy on the field. So you do get a very strong amount of damage from this as well, which is going to be really nice for Yunli. But if you don't launch Yunli's counter during the parry state, it is going to launch an attack anyway, which is very nice because it gives her a little bit less of a reliance on being hit by enemies. You do still launch a different enhanced counter called Intuit Slash. Now, for Intuit Slash, it does have the same damage multiplier as Intuit Cull, which is very nice, but you don't get those additional damage procs, which if you're running into like a single enemy or like very few enemies, you are going to be losing out on that damage against probably like the elite or boss enemy. And thankfully as well, Yunli's A2 trace will turn every other use of Intuit Slash into Intuit Cull. So you are going to be able to get a good amount of Intuit Culls in, even if you're using your ultimate at a time where you're not going to get hit. So there is still the damage loss there, but it is still nice to be able to, use Intuit Cull for half the times that you would be using Intuit Slash. And also, it's important to note that any counters during the parry, so Intuit Cull and Intuit Slash, they are considered to be ultimate damage. And that's really nice because you are going to be able to have that separate multiplier, so if anything comes out in the future that buffs specifically ultimate damage, that is going to help Yunli out a lot. So those are the main points for Yunli's kit. So now let's talk about whether or not she is still good in the current state of the game. So Yunli is in a very interesting position for DPS characters because when she came out, she wasn't like super broken like a lot of people expect DPSs to be, and a good amount of DPSs have been when they have released, but Yunli has just been relatively solid all around. she can definitely still clear endgame content. And I think that in terms of how well she'll age, she probably will end up aging better, and I think she has aged better than sub DPS characters, despite her not being broken to start. And I think that's just because of the fact that she is a counter character similar to Clara, where enemies are going to be attacking you, regardless of what the enemy mechanics are and everything, they are going to be attacking you. So in a lot of situations, you're going to be able to get good damage in as long as you are constantly, as more, better support characters and sustainers come out, as you are upgrading more parts of your team, Yunli is still going to be very usable. It's a very similar situation with Clara, where I still get use out of my Clara, as I do have, I've gotten more Eidolons from her because she is a standard character. I do have her signature light cone, and having more investment in her, plus having better support, has made her work out for me in certain situations as well, despite my actual build investment on her not being as good as it should be. So since Yunli is a much better and much more probably consistent version of Clara, I do think that it is looking good for Yunli in the long run. So now to talk about whether or not you should be pulling for Yunli. I don't think that Yunli is a must pull. She is going to be very nice for people who do have her, but I don't think that if you don't have her, you're missing a major piece of getting through Honkai Star Rail endgame or anything like that, or if you don't pull Yunli, your account is bricked. Nothing like that is the case for her. I think that if you don't have a good enough, physical DPS character, or you're just running low on DPSs in general, she could be a good option, but you will really only be running her against the physical weak stages unless your build is good enough to be brute forcing the enemies that don't have physical weakness. And I also think that because Clara does exist as a standard 5-star that has the pretty much same exact sort of gameplay, well, not same exact, there are differences of course between the two with the way their ultimates work, but if you bring it down to as simple as possible with them just being counter units, they're pretty similar. I think that Clara can still do it, but if your Clara either has low investment in terms of light cone, Eidolons, whatever, and you want to just have a better character overall, I think Yunli is going to be a very solid pickup and will be able to cover physical weaknesses very well for you. But I think that if you either don't need another DPS or don't need another physical DPS, or if your Clara or other physical DPS has enough investment to be clearing endgame the way they are right now, Yunli isn't really necessary for you. Now, Yunli is overall just going to be a very strong upgrade for Clara. So if people are using Clara but not really feeling like they're getting enough out of her, that can be a good thing to do. But you could also just pull for Yunli's light cone as well, which is another big option for Clara, because Yunli's light cone is both Yunli and Clara's best in slot option right now. So if you already have a Clara that's well invested and you want to make her better, instead of pulling on Yunli's light cone is not a bad idea either, because you are going to get a extra taunt value from it, you're going to get some extra crit damage, you're going to get some extra follow-up damage as well, so you are going to be seeing a pretty big damage boost for Clara, as well as just a bit more consistency as well with the aggro value increase, since Clara herself doesn't have a taunt. But overall, Yunli is going to be pretty solid. I do think that if you do, want that kind of DPS, and just need a good physical DPS, she probably is a really good option for a lot of people, but also not a character that I feel like you need to prioritize, since once again, a lot of people will have Clara, a lot of people will be able to build her at least decently, and have her perform decently in the end game as well. But there are going to be better DPSs, both ones that have came out in the past and ones to come for sure. So let me know what you think about Yunli in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that, I will see you all next time.